What up, what up, what up? We are back. Who am I? Jersey Street Corner, and this is the Prison Talk Show, people. Now, today, I got a banger for you. I have a crazy story about a CO, correctional officer, that disrespected a blood named Rudy Red. Let's get into it, y'all. Now, normally, any CO working the gang unit, they act right. They know it's pretty much them and like 100 different gang members from different gangs. So you can't, just act tough just because you got a badge on. You ain't got to do favors, but you also need to mind your business. Well, people, it's always that one. Any prison you find yourself in, you will have one CO that's so by the book, he don't even give the inmates an extra 10 minutes of rec time, even if they acting right. Well, ours was Officer Skidwitsky, notoriously known as Mr. Get Right. Not only did he hate inmates, he also hated black people. Yeah, y'all, we was dealing with one of those. Skidwitsky would do some bullshit, like walk into the day room and unplug the TV, tell everyone early lockdown, just so he could chill at his desk for 8 hours and do nothing. The only time he would let us out was for mess hall. One day, we're on the way to lunch, following a line. Can you believe this officer stops Rudy Red? He says, "Inmate against the wall, are you carrying contraband?" And Rudy said, "No." He said, "Bullshit," and started searching. Rudy was clean. He ain't have nothing. He just wanted lunch. Officer Skidwitsky was so mad and embarrassed, he looked at Rudy Red and said, "You better get in line with your kind and get those scraps, boy." Then, y'all, the disrespect. This officer chewed tobacco. He spit a big glob of brown spit right in Rudy Red's face and told him, "Keep it moving, inmate." All the blood saw what happened. And they wasn't about to let it slide. Officer Skidwitsky just crossed the line and turned into op number one. Once all the blood sat down and held a quick emergency meeting at the lunch table, it was a unanimous vote. Officer Skidwitsky had to go. They wasn't going to let him, work another shift. Everyone knew how to jam they doors, they cell doors, so they looked closed, but you could push them right open. And well, the plan was get the CO on the tier, act like everybody's in the cells waiting for count, and as soon as he gets to the middle of the tier where he can't get away, everybody gonna pop out of those doors and do him dirty. And well, I guess you guys probably already understand which way this is going. This CO is not fitting to have a good night. Now, as the CO walked the cells, walked the tiers, all the bloods was on the third floor. So as he's slowly approaching, all he hears is, "Sue woo." He hear a bunch of calls like that, right? Now, not only does this officer not know what these calls mean, but he's also used to hearing a bunch of noise and nonsense like that going on a daily basis, so he's not going to think anything of it. Now, once he reaches that third floor, y'all, and he's about in the middle of the tier, all of a sudden, people start popping out of their cells, y'all. And this all went down within 5 minutes. He had no chance. He couldn't get to his radio. He couldn't do none of that. When I say they popped out of those cells, about 20 of them ran towards him, grabbed him, They start beating the brakes off of him right there on the tier, y'all. Now, I don't know who came up with this idea of having one officer in a whole 3-floor unit, in a gang unit, mind you. But that's the craziest thing I ever heard in my life. One officer for over 100 inmates. And it's like that in all the different pods. There's different pods and different units in the prison. And I guess they spread thin. They need help. Well, Officer Skid Whiskey would get no help today. He got his teeth kicked in. He got his head bashed against the wall. He was getting juked up. They was hitting him with makeshift shivs and blades. Yeah, y'all. Now, the final decision, the final blow would come from Rudy Red. Being that he was on the other end of the disrespect, the Bloods thought it would be fair for him to do what he wanted after the beatdown. We had a maintenance closet where they kept all of the mops and brooms and mop buckets and whatnot, cleaning supplies. And that door was always open, so we can go in there and get what we need. Man, Rudy shoved that CO in that closet and just start stomping him. Just stomping him. Now, remember y'all, the CO, he's spitting Rudy's face. Well, Rudy, he was going to do that and some. Rudy had diabolical plans for this officer. He was going to humiliate him to the fifth power. First, he started spitting in his face, just like he did to him. Puh, puh. How you like that? How you like that? Then, I never seen nobody do this to anybody in my life. Normally, somebody will put something in a bottle and maybe toss it at you, spray it at you. Nah. Rudy whipped out right in front of that officer and started pissing all in his face. And this officer so hurt and messed up, he can't even move out the way. He can't do nothing but take it. Piss just clapping him in the face. Psst. All in his mouth, his eyes, everything. Yeah, y'all. Then, Rudy wasn't done with him. He wanted this man to suffer, y'all. He wanted him to suffer. They lit that closet on fire. Yeah, y'all. Lit the closet on fire with the officer inside. Smoke coming out the door. They closed it. Smoke coming on the bottom of the door. And all you hear is yells in there. And they leaning, because the door don't got a lock on it, so they leaning against it. So just in case this man has enough energy to open the door, he can't. Ah! Ah! Let me out! Ah! Help! Help! Don't nobody hear your screams, Officer Skid Whiskey. You should have been thinking about that help you screaming about when you was spitting in the big blood face. Nah. You should have been thinking about that, homeboy, before your racist views. So, they wasn't trying to unalive him. They just wanted to teach him a lesson, y'all. A serious lesson. A lesson that came with third-degree burns, smoke inhalation, all that. They opened the door. They tossed water in there on him. Put the fire out. Man, they started stomping his dumb ass again. He was still moving, and that's not what they wanted to see. They wanted to see him incapacitated, knocked out, done. They stomped him until he was knocked out cold, y'all. Then they dragged him all the way down the tier to the showers. Put him in the showers, put it on cold, turned it on. Now, all the Bloods is in the shower at this point in time, y'all. They following what Rudy did. Each one of them took turns pissing in this man's face. Yep, I'm sure he had to drink a healthy amount of that urine that day. You talking about at least 35 bloods pissed in this man's face, laughing. They cracking up about it. After that, all those bloods took turns taking a full dump right on Officer Skid Whiskey's face. All over his face, y'all. You talking 35 dumps to the face. Yeah, y'all. They made sure they got it all in his mouth. They made sure he swallowed it. I mean, they physically mushed it in his mouth with their hands. Now, us as free people, I know y'all probably thinking, ew, that's nasty. They was touching each other's, mess. Look, y'all. Have you ever heard of the prison purse? Most of these men in prison are very used to digging through feces to find weapons, drugs, you name it. This is how they get stuff in the prison. They call it boofing. They had no problem touching feces. They was right there in the shower. They could just wash their hands off right there in the shower. No problem. And by the way, y'all, it was worth it to all of them to get their hands a little dirty to make this man suffer. This officer would never, ever think about disrespecting another blood again in his life. And that's just what it was, people. So this officer thought that he was going to keep them locked down for his whole 8-hour shift. Nah, it was more the opposite. They kept him locked down for that 8-hour shift. And when the shift was almost over, before changeover, they dragged his ass to the gate and left him there. All burnt up, bloody, pissed on, clothes soaked, stinking. And he couldn't do nothing about it but lay there. Now, he ain't see who did it. He had no idea who did nothing to him. That's how bad they messed him up. All he could think about was surviving. That's all that was going through this officer's mind, was surviving, because he thought they was fitting to unalive him in that prison. All the bloods, all the gang members that popped out of their cells, they ran back to their cells and locked in. Pulled the stuff out of the cells to jam it and locked in like they ain't had nothing to do with it. So now when the next shift change came, the officer, all of the officers that came, when they start smelling the smoke and the shift change, they saw the officer on the ground. They immediately opened the gate, pulled him out of there to safety, got him to the EMS in the jail so they could do what they can for him. Hopefully he won't get unalived. Now they have nobody to pin this on. Everybody is locked in. Nobody is ratting. Nobody gonna tell them nothing. The most they could do, and what they did do, they kept us on lockdown for 4 months straight, y'all. No wreck, nothing. So, this officer got what was coming to him, but we also got punished as well. We had to sit in our cells for 4 months straight. Do you know what that's like, sitting in a cell for 4 months straight? You don't even get dressed. You sit around in your underwear and your boxers and your t-shirt because you ain't going nowhere. You just sitting in a cell all day. So that's what happened to us. As a new precaution, the warden implemented a rule that no officer was to walk onto a tier by himself. He had to be accompanied by another officer if he had any reason to go into a tier. Also, he implemented that they would be able to carry little vials of mace, because they couldn't have any handguns or any weapons on them, but they would be able to have a little vial of mace that could possibly save their life if need be one day. So, most of the correctional officers, they had a good idea what happened. Everybody knew Officer Skid Whiskey was a racist. They also knew he was very disrespectful. And somebody should have schooled him You don't go around disrespecting gang members and thinking there will be no retaliation. Why you think they in here in the first place? Because they don't care about you or anybody else. You disrespect them, you playing with your life, homeboy. And well, that officer Skid Whiskey never returned to that prison. He might have retired. He might have quit. I don't know what happened to him, but we never seen him again. Nor did anybody in that prison ever face that kind of unjustified, bullshit. You don't spit in nobody's face. That man lucky he didn't lose his life. Now, I don't know if any of y'all know anything about retaliation against officers in the prison systems. Oh, don't think it goes forgotten. Never that. Even if they don't have somebody in particular to blame, guess what, y'all? Everyone gets blamed. That's right. The COs will find some way to make everyone suffer. Just like the 4 months of lockdown, but they can make that 4 months of lockdown hell. They can make meals come late or not at all. They could keep the doors locked and not permit you to shower. They could take away your rec time. And everybody who was involved in this incident, well, everybody was ready for the repercussions. But unfortunately, whether you had something to do with it or not, you still was gonna suffer right along with us. So remember I said the warden implemented a new rule that they were allowed to have little vials of mace? Well, these COs, they weren't going to let it go without nothing being done. They totally understood that Skowitsky was a racist and he treated people badly. But they also felt the disrespect towards them personally. They all looking at it like, well, if we all officers, y'all could have did the same thing to us. We not going to let that slide. Y'all better not ever try nothing like that ever as long as you in this prison. Or some of y'all might not leave this prison. And that was said verbally, y'all. Before they were commenced to walking up and down the tiers, spraying that mace. Now they got masks on, y'all. They got masks on and they just spraying away like aerosol. They're not spraying it on us. They're not spraying it in the cells, but they are filling the airs, all 3 floors with mace, y'all. Whether you was involved or not, you getting this work. That is where I learned how to make a mask in prison. You have to get 2 pieces of cloth, preferably a bed sheet, a clean one, hopefully. And you just got to cut. You got to put holes in both sides. You got to cut some more ribbons out of the sheet to make the part that you tie up. That's also how you make bandanas. There's all types of stuff you can make in prison, y'all. But anyway, this one will help save your life or keep you alive a little longer. You make yourself a mask, and then you make a double mask to put on the bottom of that, over your mouth. So you got 2 cloths covering your mouth pretty much, and you got one that you could flip over your eyes if need be to help you so it doesn't get in your eyes and burn. People that wasn't ready and expecting this retaliation, they was in their cells struggling, crying, screaming, it burns, it's burning, it tastes so nasty, oh my God, what did we do, what did we do? And the officers, they just laugh and they hurry up and get on out of there and get back to the control booth, take off all that stuff, hide it, because they wasn't supposed to be doing that. The warden didn't say they could do none of that. They were supposed to have the mace just in case they needed it. But they wanted to let everybody know who was still in control. And if anybody ever attempted to do that again to another officer, there will be serious repercussions. one or two of the jokers that was in the pod didn't make it that night, y'all. They had asthma, real bad asthma. And it was way too much mace filling that whole building for them to breathe. They couldn't breathe at all. They got as low as they could to the ground. Their cheek was on the concrete floor, gasping for air at the bottom of the cell, trying to stay alive. And they passed right there. Found them in the morning. And called the code. And that was just ruled as normal causes. The mace was far gone by the time anybody came. And, they wasn't going to do an autopsy on an inmate. You know where he was headed, to the incinerator. Listen, this is a life lesson, y'all. You could take this in jail or out of jail. You disrespect somebody like that, expect the worst. Alright, y'all. With that, I'm going to get on up out of here. Y'all heard enough about Rudy Red and Officer Skid Whiskey. Y'all get in the comment box and tell me what y'all would have done if y'all was in that prison and that officer did that to you. Would you have stood there and took it, or would you and your crew have retaliated the way Rudy Red did? What you think, people? Get in the comment box. Let's talk about it. Like, share, subscribe, and share this video with somebody that you know could benefit from hearing it. Alright, y'all. It's your boy JS Corner. This is the Prison Talk Show, and I'm out.